this is Christine, and today I wanted to talk about something. I was listening to a podcast um, recently, and they were talking about an article, and so it inspired me to go and read the article. The article is called "Your Surge Capacity is Depleted. It's Why You Feel So Awful" by Tara Hale, and it is on Medium. And so the idea behind it is that we all have something called surge capacity, and it's a collection of adaptive systems, mental and physical, that we draw on during times of crisis, like a natural disaster, a fire, something that is really stressful and requires our survival, but also something that tends to be over relatively quickly. Um, Unfortunately, with COVID, that's not the case. So we had this adrenaline surge. We were able to get through, the initial um, round of it, and but it's continuing, and so we are feeling exhausted and we're feeling depleted, and we are not done. And so the thing we need to wrestle with right now is how do we renew that surge capacity so that we can get through the upcoming months, because I think most people believe that um, things are going to get harder again as we go into winter, and depending on the climate that you live in, you may be more limited in terms of what you can do, because being outside may not be as easily accessible as it is in the warmer weather. So how do we sort of emotionally and mentally prepare ourselves for that? Um, and so some things to think about are that what we're experiencing right now is something called ambiguous loss, which means that it's not something that is necessarily obvious. If you have a hurricane or a flood or another kind of natural disaster, or someone dies, the loss is obvious. You can see it, you can feel it. It's a very physical um, experience. With our current situation, for many of us, the loss is very ambiguous. Many people have lost family and loved ones to COVID, and that is something that's a little bit different. But for many of us, it's the loss of freedom, it's the loss of the lifestyle that we used to have, the things that we like to do. It's the loss of connection to family and friends, physical connection to family and friends. So it's a little bit harder to measure and a little bit harder to see, which doesn't make it any less painful. But it can also give us this feeling of a lack of self control, or not a lack of self control, a lack of control, feeling of helplessness, which can also make you start to feel hopeless. And so it's a challenging thing, and for people that are used to getting things done, and as Americans, we like our to-do list, we like to be able to check things off. That's not possible right now, and so that leaves people feeling like they just don't know what to do, and that can lead to feelings of anxiety and depression, anger and frustration, and just feeling pretty crappy. um, so there are definitely things that you can do to kind of help yourself move through it. And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. So the first thing is this idea of accepting things as they are. It doesn't mean that you are giving up or saying that everything's great, but it's just the idea of accepting that things are tough right now. Everyone is going through something. We're all in the same storm, different boats, as the saying goes. So people are experiencing loss at different levels and in different ways, but we are all experiencing loss in some way. And it's difficult and it's hard, and so there are going to be these challenging feelings. Um, and just kind of leaning into them when you can. They're messy feelings, they're uncomfortable feelings. Nobody really wants to experience them, but when we try to push them down, then it kind of makes it worse, because then we go into this denial and then we feel bad and we don't know why. So as challenging as it is, leaning into those feelings is really important, when you can, and just kind of giving yourself some time to process and just feel them. And so along those lines, where none of us is really operating at full capacity these days. Everyone, and it may vary from day to day, week to week, but most people that you talk to will say that they are experiencing some form of these feelings. And so it takes more for us to do less. And so we kind of have to just expect less from ourselves and have some self compassion, and just realize that, um, it's just we need more hand holding from ourselves, and we may not be able to do as much as we did before. We're less focused. People's memories are, like, people are having trouble in conversations remembering words, or remembering what they need to do. And so nobody is really operating at full tilt, and we kind of just have to accept that and be kind to ourselves, and realize that we really need to up those levels of self-care, and just kind of take care of ourselves as much as we can. I know for myself, my self-care routine has extended. It's like a 2-hour routine right now, and I feel like every morning I'm getting slower and slower, and I'm doing, I'm getting through that, and then I'm doing less during my day, but that's just the way it is, and I can't seem to change anything about that. So I just keep doing it, because even though I'm not feeling incredible. I have good days and bad days, but that self care routine really helps me at least get through the day. Even if I'm dragging myself through, I'm getting out of bed, I'm doing what I need to do, and I know that the self care routine is a big part of that. So just keep taking care of yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is that there are different aspects of grief, and we are experiencing grief in some way right now. So there are different stages of grief. I'm not going to go into all of them right now, and the stages aren't necessarily experienced in a linear way, but just some of the things to keep in mind. Some of the feelings that go along with grief. There's deep sadness. There's anger. There can be denial. There's frustration, fear, and just a feeling of lethargy and not wanting to get out of bed. So all of those feelings are normal right now, and maybe even healthy, because we are responding to the situation at hand, and just understand that it's part of the process, and there's nothing wrong with you, and everyone else doesn't have it all together. I think that that's a big thing that a lot of us experience, is that whole comparison, that so and so is holding it together. They just seem like they're continuing to move along at the same pace, and I should be doing better. And that's not the case. Everyone is having their rough days. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday. I was saying that this week has been a tough one for me for whatever reason. No crises, but just feeling kind of down, feeling irritable, angry, frustrated. Had been feeling really great last week. In fact, had thought to myself, wow, I've really figured out how to manage this. I think I'm doing really well. And so then, of course, this week started, and that all, went to hell in a handbasket. And I was talking to my friend, and she said, oh, yeah, I'm feeling really good this week, but last week it was just really tough. So everyone is experiencing that in some way, and you just know that you're not alone. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're doing the best you can. You shouldn't be doing better than you are right now. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. So the things, one of the things that I've been thinking about is that as I think about the winter, living in the American Northeast when it's going to get cold and dark, I'm trying to think of what I can do to kind of emotionally and mentally prepare myself for that. Because last year it started in March, so it was the tail end of the winter, and we all thought it was going to be a temporary thing. Of course, it wasn't. And so now going into the winter, we know what it's going to be like. I, I'm hopeful that we're not going to be under the same type of quarantine restrictions that we were last year, but certainly being outside is not going to be as easy as it is right now. So some of the things that I'm trying to do is to get outside, enjoy the fall weather, really experience nature. And my plan is that I'm going to try and do that all through the winter as best I can, even if it's just a quick walk around the block, bundled up and just to get some fresh air. And I'm stocking up on books that I want to read, thinking about movie nights. How can I have some socially distanced conversations outside? One of my friends has a heater on her deck. Can you bundle up and go sit outside? So think about things that you enjoy in the colder months and how you might be able to incorporate those into your days even more so than maybe you would in a typical year when you have a little bit more freedom um, to do more. And also think about what are the small things that you can do for yourself during the day that are kind of just part of your day that don't take a lot of time but actually make you feel really good. So, for example, can you light a candle? Do you like taking baths? Have a glass of wine with dinner? Get a massage? What are the things that you can do that don't involve a lot of time but are just kind of incorporated into your day and can just add to that feeling of security and safety and being taken care of. So that's it for tonight. It's a short one, and I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you soon.